Hey guys, welcome to IQ Chess. Hope you're having a fantastic day. As promised in my previous video, here we are continuing our birds opening series. Thank you so much for the support in the last video. We got over 20 new subscribers. So if you are watching this video right now, welcome to the family. So in this video, we will be looking at the reverse Dutch setup. What I mean by that is this video will discuss everything that can happen after the move f4 and black sets up with d5, c5, knight f3. So this will be our agenda today. Let's begin. So quickly, a reminder before you watch this video. If the previous video I made on the birds opening gave a brief overview and I went over the basic lines that exist in the opening. So if you have not watched the video already, you can find a link for it in the description below and in the iCard. So be sure to watch it before you watch this video. I have covered the fundamentals of this opening there. So the game begins with d5 here. So first you'll look at this variation. This is the classic variation. What you'll mostly end up with. And here the move we're going to play is just simply knight f3. So instead of just memorizing the moves for the sake of memorization, we would like to learn why certain moves are being played. So yeah. The birds opening, basically, what we're trying to do is we are fighting for the dark square complex. If you don't know what I mean by that, is that birds opening really focuses on the dark squares around the center of the board. We are fighting for these squares. And the way we do it is with a flank pawn f4, essentially fighting for the e5 square. We are playing knight to f3, again covering for the critical e5 square and the d4 square. We can soon play moves like e3, b3 and our finish it over here, at which point you'll have a long-term pressure on this diagonal covering all these dark squares, and you can plant your knight in the center of the board. So we'll look at a practical example here. c5 might or might not happen, but this move doesn't really make much of a difference whether it happens or not, because no matter what, our third move I should say, is almost always going to be e3. We are opening the door for this bishop to come out. You can also choose to play the move b3 in the position. It's nothing wrong. Both are equally good in my opinion. So e3 is what I usually play. And for something like knight to c6, if your opponent tries to fight for the center and play the move e5, we don't want that happening. So we can play the move bishop to b5, simply putting this knight and actually taking the knight. We don't want this knight to cause any trouble to us. And this bishop, in a way, is just a pain in the existence. It's not really useful for us long term. So we would rather have this bishop gone for the sake of this knight, which is quite important for black. So yeah, something like e6 might happen, and we can just play b3, looking for a fianchetto. Knight to f6, the typical move from black. After the capture and we get fianchetto, we have achieved everything that we need. We have a strong clamp in the center of the board. We are covering the dark squares very well. We can play the move knight to e5 at any good moment. Can play the move d3, knight to d2, castle or king, and a really important move in these positions is queen to e1. Let's go for a typical example, like let's say our opponent plays something like bishop to e7, preparing to castle. We can just simply play the move d3. You're not really afraid of anything. Let's say our opponent castles. Here we're gonna go for knight to d2, again developing our pieces. And after something like, let's say, bishop to b7 or bishop to d7, we can plant our knight in the center of the board. Actually, in this variations, this move does not really make sense. So yeah, let's go here instead. We can just simply plant our knight in the center of the board. We can delay castling for a bit. It's not a big thing. And actually, in certain cases, you can play the move h3, g4 and go for a massive attack right in this start. So you can actually looking on the other side of the board if you feel like doing it. So yeah, let's say your opponent plays something like a5, which is very common. Actually, a lot of people just try to instigate on the queen side of the board. You can either ignore this or just play a4 yourself and just shut everything down here. And now, what is this? Is basically a closed position. The center of the board is closed. So that means, as an attacking player, it's going to benefit us. After something like, let's say, queen to c7, which is quite common in these positions, we can just continue bolstering up our knight. We can also castle if you want to. Let's say castles for the sake of it. And black let's just play a waiting move for black. We would simply we can have two choices here. Either redefend our knight like this, or another really tricky idea in this position is actually rook to f3. We are doing a rook lift. What it means is that basically we would like to move the rook to either h3 or g3 and then follow it up with a queen, and it's going to be really bad news for our opponent because defending this position is very hard. Let's say, for example, your opponent, like maybe goes back here to defend, or something. Let's say your opponent plays knight back, trying to defend. At this point, we can just try to play f6, for example. You can just simply play rook here. This capture won't really make sense. Let's say f6 is being played, and here already they are dead lost because queen to g4 is just the GG's. It's very hard to defend the pawn. In fact, the only way to defend it is with the move rook to f7, and at which point just simply takes, and we're just getting it. As simple as that. It's plus 6.5, and we are very happy with this position. So yeah, that's how a typical middle game of reverse Dutch would look like for you. Your opponent might not blunder in the same way as what I showed, but this has happened to me a couple of times against pretty strong players in 30-0 games. So yeah, it can happen, really. I have faced such things in 30-0 games, so this might happen for you too. Now let's come back all the way. So also another option you have is to just defend your knight and just not let your opponent do anything. If they attack you, just stay there and basically recapture this way. That's a good choice too. So let's come back all the way. So to this position, okay? If you delay the capture of the knight, if you don't want to capture it right away and give up your bishop pair, it's fine. You can still not do it and just do this. But remember, we are not really comfortable or happy for this. We would rather damage the pawn structure, but still this is as good as anything because you're gonna again do the same thing with d3, knight to d2, knight on e5. This knight comes to f3. We castle on the king side. We can play h3, g4, or we can play the move queen to e1 and mobilizing our queen to the dark squares and attacking on this side of the board. And the center being so closed means it benefits you. What I mean by that is, let's say, for a typical game, let's just say your opponent just plays here. We go here, and opponent defends the bishop this way. This line is actually going to benefit you because at the end of the day, you are the attacking player. We can play right here. Let's say opponent plays something like a5. Why not? This basically is beneficial for us because center is really closed. So because of that reason, when the center is very closed, as an attacking player, you can quickly mobilize your pieces. And you can see that this queen, what is the queen doing? The queen has no purpose in there. It's just standing in some lonely square. Same goes for this bishop, and this rook is certainly not playing anything. This bishop might play, but again, this knight is blocking its way. So what are we just fighting against? Three main troops. The only threat for us are this king. Only three troops are there defending the king side, and we can just mobilize everything. We have a knight on the board fighting for that square. We have another knight for a join. We have a bishop acting as a long-range sniper. We have a rook that can come up here and do a rook lift. We have a queen that can mobilize through these dark squares and attack on the king side. We can follow it up with this rook behind the other rook, and then it's going to be a bad news for an opponent. You can also play the move h3, g4, just going for a massive pawn storm in the center of the board, just completely destroying your opponent. So that's one thing. Now we can come back up all the way to the start of the game because that's basically everything after the move d5. But you might not always get that. Let's look at c5 for a difference here. Again, we're going to play the move knight f3, no matter what. And here, again, your opponent might play the move knight to c6, just playing in typical style of, I would say, the English style. This is just English opening, and we are playing the touch against English. If you just reverse it all a bit and just see it this way, let's say the game begins with c4, f5. This is just the same thing. This is just an Anglo Dutch, as it's called as. But we are playing with the white pieces, so yeah, we are upper tempo. So here, again, we're going to play the move e3. We are going to bring this bishop out and just straight for it. So remember, at any point, if your opponent plays the move d4, it becomes the last study. If it, let's say in this position, if your opponent plays the move d4, d5, I should say, sorry, we are back actually. If you just see in this position, this is what we looked at just a minute ago. So this is the same thing. So all these three moves I showed you, d4, d5, c5, knight to f6, all tie up into one or other thing. We are just transposing, I should say, because what a transposition means is that you can begin a game in a certain way and still reach the same position as before. So it's possible, but your opponent could do something else like g6, for example. This is one of the most annoying variations for me personally because we have to slightly moderate our play. Again, I recommend the move bishop to b5, simply exchanging that knight in the court and playing along. Let's say bishop to g1, feint shadowing the bishop. We can play the move knight to c3 here. We still want to feint shadow because the bishop has no scope in this diagonal. It's completely closed. It's facing 3 pawns. So playing d3 and bishop to d2 does not really make sense. So first of all, we cover this diagonal with our knight, and then we can play the move b3 and bishop to b2. It may do something like knight f6 and then b3. Here again, the play is fairly standardized. We can just exchange this knight whenever we want to. For example, let's say your opponent castles. We can just capture this knight, and after the recapture, let's say d takes or b takes, doesn't really matter to us. We can play the move bishop to b2, and yeah, maybe your opponent comes here with this threat, but not really a problem for us. We can just play h3, put them out of the position. If they take, we are fine with that. Queen takes. We can play either long castles or short castles, g4, and just go for it. Just go for a attack on the king side of the board again. So this is all fairly standard. You have to remember this knight to c3 line just in case your opponent plays in this way. You need to know what you're doing. So that's basically it for the variation with c5. We also have to look at some other things like knight to c6, for example. This again I have faced a couple of times, and it is not really that hard to play against, objectively speaking, but your opponent could do something really goofy. Like I have faced a couple of people who play the move f6 followed by e5. So it's possible. There are some goofy stuff also, but it's not that hard for us. You can just play the move knight f3 because again, in this position your opponent has to play something like g6. There is no real choice. At any point, if they play the move d5, this is just our old territory because again, yeah, the pawn is not there on c5, but it's not bother us. You can just play the move e3, and let's say if your opponent plays something like this, or let's say bishop to f5, for example, we're still gonna go here and just simply get this knight, get the knight, and then just play b3, feint shadow. We saw the same thing. We're gonna again plant the knight here, and it's just gonna tie up with the previous studies. However, if your opponent plays something really goofy, usually people who play like this play with d3, d6 next. Like for example, they play the move d6 here, trying to play for e5. So remember, at any point in your study, if you ever face this kind of a variation where your opponent deliberately tries to force e5 upon you, except for the first move, playing e5 here is a whole new chapter. We will cover it in a separate video. Wait for that. But after this point, if at any moment your opponent plays anything that tries to force e5 on you, you have two choices. You can either let them play the e5 break, but you can play the move e4 here, actually, in fact. And then after e5, this is just not so good for your opponent. This is just goofy and just stupid for your opponent. Or you can play something like d4, which I like more, just simply not letting them play at all. And at this point, if they play the move d5, is just beneficial for us. You can just play d5, kick the knight out. This knight has to boot away. Knight e7 is the typical move that is played. And f takes e5 is simply winning for us because, yeah, after the recapture, we can just play the move e4. We have a strong pawn in the center of the board. Your opponent has to worry about this pawn now. If they play something like knight f6 or just some random move out, again, this pawn is just very weak. By pawn, I guess, or here they're attacking us, so we can just defend our pawn. They can play something like bishop out to g4. It's nothing fanciful, just play h6 for h3 and just kick them out of the board and then just play short castles, and you'll have a better game from here. So that is for knight to c6 shenanigans. Let's come back and look at this knight to f6. This again is not so different because they're going to open the game with knight f3 no matter what. And again, here, your opponent only has two main ways of playing. They can play the move d5, c5, knights to c6, and e6, bring the bishop out this way. Or they can choose to go the other path and play the move g6 here. And again, g6, you can just play the move b3. You would like to beat them to the diagonal before them. So this is just simply good for us, I would say. And again, if your opponent plays the move d5 here, it's going to be the same thing. Just play the e3 idea and just bring the bishop out when the knight comes out, for example. Let's say knight to c6. We're going to play this move and short castles. No matter what, you're going to just take the knight over there. And something I have to remember, okay? Here, a common mistake that people make, including myself, is playing the move d3. The problem with d3 right now is because the pawn on e3 will be undefended. And because that's a queen shaped bishop on the long diagonal, playing the move d3 here is disastrous for us. Your opponent could play the move knight to g4. This particularly is not as appealing right now, but after the capture, in certain variations, not in this specific variation, but in certain variations, knight takes e3 could be dangerous for you. In this way, in this specific variation, it's not, because you can just play the move knight back and then this knight has to leave. There's no competition. You can just leave the square and then we are just winning at this point. However, there are some variations where you can do this and go completely wrong. So I recommend just castling before you play the move d3. If at any point your opponent has a bishop on the long diagonal, you should delay the move d3 and only play it after castling and the move h6. So for example, let's say your opponent develops here. You can play the move h6, just preemptively blocking the square. And now you can go for the same old stuff. Let's say your opponent plays something like, let's say c5 for example. Here d3 again would make sense because there is no knight to g4 here. There is no weak square. So yeah, that's basically summarizing all the variations that we have seen so far. We'll go through them once again in a really quick fashion. So typically, the setup that we're going to go for is just f4, knight on f3, e3, bishop on b5 trying to trade, b3, bishop on b2, d3, knight on d2, and knight on the center of the board with a strong clamp. You can castle on the king side, play the move h3 if you feel like. You can play the move queen to e1 using the dark squares to develop your queen out and then attacking on this side of the board. That is basically how you're going to play the bird's opening against reverse Dutch setups. So that basically summarizes this video. Also, I have a game for you guys. This is a game I played at 88% accuracy. I'm very sorry for that. So yeah, in this game, actually I had some missed wins and mistakes. However, still I got accuracy of 88.6 and I won the game in fairly easy fashion. The game began with f4. We have d5, knight to f3, knight to f6, e3, and your opponent plays the move bishop to g4. Not really a good move. Again, this just does not bother me at all. I just went for b3. We have e6, bishop to b2, and the moment the knight comes out, I go for the bishop to b5 idea immediately. They attack my bishop, I exchange the knight, and then I play the move d3. Here my opponent goes for bishop to d6. I played the move knight to d2, knight b d2. We have castles, and just typical stuff, queen to e1 as I mentioned. We would like to move the queen to the side of the board and attack on the king side. And the next move was simple at e5. Opponent captured and I exchanged this way. Now this knight has to move. And here I just went for queen to g3. Simply I'm winning a tempo. At this point, it's just middle game already. Here I just did some inaccuracies. I played queen to h3, further pushing them away, and I played this move knight to f3, which the computer thinks is a mistake. And then this giving him a pawn here. I was thinking maybe like just capture it and then play along. However, my opponent did not spot that, and I just got a very good position out of it. Capture, and then knight to b6 from my opponent. Not really a good move. Knight to h4, and I just won the bishop. And here, I missed a critical move. Knight to rook to c1 is a mistake. A missed win. Because here, I had this monstrous move. Let me show you. Bishop to a3. That is an incredible move. The reason being, this queen actually can't take me because I'm going to enter. Queen takes e6 is a massive threat. At which point, if you block me, you're doomed. Blocking is just madness because I'm just going to take your rook. And if you move your king, now this knight is going to fall. And even if you trade here, doesn't bother me because I'm just completely winning. I have a massive control center of the board. I can take this pawn. I have a pawn that's passed, that's going to march forward, and it's just clearly winning for me. However, I did not spot the move. My mistake. I played the move rook to c1, exchanged the rooks, and it took quite a few moves to play the position out. I just tried to restrict my opponent. I did not let them have, any major loopholes in my positions. I just infiltrated with my queen. Bishop to c5, and then queen to d6. Here I just pinned the knight to the queen, and they blundered. Game was over basically. I had estimated elo of 2100 in this game and an accuracy of 88.6. And after the slight adjustments I made, slight mistakes I made, after correcting them, my accuracy went up to 97. So this game, I can say almost I played at near perfect accuracy, except for missing this really critical idea, bishop to a3. Other mistakes were very subtle and slight. They were not as prominent. So that was it for this video, guys. If you have any doubts or questions with regards to any specific variation, leave them in the comment section down below. I will definitely read them and respond to you. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video, which covers other lines, especially pawn to e5 immediately, called as the Frum's Gambit. It's really, really important that you learn Frum's Gambit theory before you start playing the birds opening by yourself. So that was it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. And till the next video, stay tuned. Also, if you enjoyed the video, like the video and subscribe to my channel. Videos like this take a long time and a lot of efforts to make. So if you consider subscribing, it's going to be really helpful for me and it's going to motivate me to make more such beautiful content. So yeah. Bye.